September 25, 2012. Monrovia, Liberia. A commercial flight lands just after sunset. Among the passengers is a heavy-set man wearing a plain blue polo shirt. Nothing about him attracts attention. No bodyguards, no luxury convoy, no private jet. To everyone around him, he's just another businessman arriving for a meeting. But hidden across the city, DEA agents are already waiting. So are Liberian police. For years, they've been following a trail that stretches across 5 continents. Built from wire transfers, encrypted emails, fake identities, shell companies, and millions of dollars moving through the global banking system. Tonight, that trail finally leads to one man. Within 24 hours, he'll be handcuffed, placed on a flight to New York, and begin revealing secrets that investigators spent years trying to uncover. Not just a drug empire, an entire criminal corporation. Weapons, money laundering, contract killings, illegal logging, gold smuggling, mercenary armies, all connected to a man almost nobody had ever heard of. His name was Paul Le Roux. And the evidence would reveal something investigators had never seen before. Not a traditional cartel, not organized crime as they knew it, but something entirely new. A criminal empire built from a laptop.
Part 1. Follow the digital money.
To untangle this, you have to follow the money. Most criminal investigations begin with a crime scene. This one began with a bank transfer. Long before investigators knew Paul Le Roux's name, they noticed something else. American banks were processing millions of dollars linked to online pharmacies selling prescription medication across the United States. At first, the transactions looked legitimate. Customers placed orders online, payments were processed, packages arrived through the mail. It appeared to be a successful international pharmaceutical business. But investigators discovered something unusual. Many prescriptions had been approved by doctors who had never examined their patients. Medical consultations existed only on paper. Some physicians were signing hundreds of prescriptions every single day. The money flowed through dozens of companies, each one carefully designed to hide the people behind the operation. But every transaction left a record. Every payment created another document. Every shipment generated another trail.
What makes this investigation remarkable is where it started. There wasn't a witness, there wasn't a fingerprint, there wasn't a murder scene. There were numbers, transactions, invoices, wire transfers. Modern criminal empires don't simply move drugs, they move information. And information creates evidence. Every email, every shipment, every payment leaves a footprint. Investigators weren't chasing a suspect, they were following evidence, and the evidence was leading them towards someone they had never heard of.
Part 2. The programmer turned kingpin. Before investigators could dismantle the empire, they had to understand the man behind it. Paul Le Roux was born on December 24, 1972, in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. He was raised in a small mining town in South Africa. On the surface, there was nothing remarkable about his childhood. But there was one thing that separated him from everyone else: computers. Friends described him as quiet, intensely intelligent, socially isolated. While others spent weekends playing sports, Paul spent countless hours writing code. He wasn't interested in popularity. He was interested in solving complex problems. By the late 1990s, his skills had reached an extraordinary level. He developed an encryption program called Encryption for the Masses, better known as E4M. The software allowed users to encrypt entire hard drives, making their files nearly impossible to access without the correct password. At the time, it was considered revolutionary. Cybersecurity experts praised its sophistication. It wasn't illegal. In fact, it became one of the most respected encryption tools available. Ironically, the same technology designed to protect privacy would eventually help conceal one of the world's largest criminal enterprises.
What made Paul Le Roux exceptional wasn't his intelligence alone. History has seen brilliant criminals before. What made him different was his ability to merge technology, business, and organized crime. He understood something investigators would later come to appreciate. A criminal organization doesn't survive because of violence. It survives because of systems, communication systems, financial systems, supply chains, corporate structures. On paper, everything appeared legitimate, but evidence has a remarkable way of connecting isolated pieces. One encrypted server led to another. One shell company led to dozens more. One financial transaction revealed an entire network. The ghost wasn't invisible. He was simply hidden behind data.
Part 3. A corporate criminal ecosystem.
The deeper investigators looked, the stranger the case became. The online pharmacies were only the beginning. DA agents, financial investigators, and forensic accountants started tracing the money. At first, they expected to uncover a handful of fraudulent companies. Instead, they found an entire corporate ecosystem. One company processed payments, another handled customer service. A different business managed international shipping. Every business looked legitimate, but none of the companies existed independently. Every road led back to the same invisible owner through one incredibly important company, RX Limited. As investigators expanded the case, they discovered something unexpected. Le Roux wasn't spending the profits, he was reinvesting them. Legal income mixed with illegal revenue. Millions of dollars flowed into companies involved in operations that had nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. Large shipments of gold, illegal logging operations, weapons procurement, money laundering. And, as the investigation took an even darker turn, former associates described violence, disappearances, and contract killings. The legitimate businesses generated infrastructure. That infrastructure moved illegal goods, and the profits funded even larger operations.
When people imagine organized crime, they often picture street gangs or cartel compounds. That's not what investigators found here. Paul Le Roux built infrastructure, businesses, supply chains, accounting systems. His organization looked less like a cartel and more like a multinational corporation. That created a new challenge. How do you investigate someone whose criminal activity is hidden inside legitimate commerce? The answer was patience, because every business kept records. Every shipment required documentation. Every bank transfer generated another trail. Le Roux trusted encryption, investigators trusted evidence, and evidence never stopped accumulating.
Part 4. The Undercover Trap.
By 2011, the investigation had reached a critical point. Investigators understood the organization. They had mapped shell companies, recovered financial records, interviewed witnesses. But one problem remained. Paul Le Roux was heavily insulated. He rarely appeared in public. He constantly changed countries. He used multiple passports, trusted almost no one, and always operated through intermediaries. When investigators closed in, he disappeared. The DEA realized something important. They weren't going to chase Paul Le Roux forever. So investigators changed strategy. Instead of pursuing the Kingpin, they would create an opportunity, too valuable for him to ignore. Working with undercover operatives, they designed an elaborate proposal, a new methamphetamine supply chain operating from Liberia, connected to powerful South American cocaine traffickers. For almost anyone, the offer would sound suspicious. For Paul Le Roux, it sounded like expansion. He agreed to a final meeting in Monrovia, Liberia, exactly where investigators wanted him. For the first time, Paul Le Roux had stepped into a situation he did not control.
This arrest wasn't successful because investigators got lucky. It succeeded because they were patient. They followed financial records. They traced communications. They built relationships with international partners. They allowed evidence to tell them what to do next. Modern investigations rarely end with dramatic raids. They end with years of quiet preparation. When Paul Le Roux boarded that flight, he believed he was expanding his empire. In reality, he was walking into the final chapter of an investigation that had already been won.
Part 5. Dismantling the Invisible Empire. On the flight to New York, something happened that no investigator could have predicted. Paul Le Roux started talking. Not a little, everything. And those conversations would dismantle the very empire he had spent years creating. He understood every part of the organization. Every business, every employee, every offshore account. For investigators, it was like suddenly being handed the blueprint to an invisible empire. Working alongside investigators, Le Roux helped identify key members of his own organization. One by one, operations were planned. Not rushed, not publicized, carefully coordinated. Each arrest removed another piece of the empire. Among the most significant was Joseph Hunter, a former U.S. Army Ranger. According to court records, Hunter coordinated murder-for-hire operations for Le Roux's organization. Using Le Roux's cooperation, investigators arranged an undercover operation, and when Hunter arrived, agents were waiting.
This is something people often misunderstand about organized crime investigations. Arresting the leader doesn't automatically dismantle the organization. What destroys an empire is information. When investigators understand how money moves, how communication flows, and how decisions are made, the organization begins destroying itself. Every witness confirms another document. Every document confirms another witness. Evidence becomes self-supporting. By the end, investigators weren't chasing Paul Le Roux anymore. They were documenting the collapse of his empire.
Part 6.
Mystery versus evidence. In June 2020, after years of cooperation, Paul Le Roux stood before a federal judge in New York. The court sentenced Le Roux to 25 years in federal prison. His businesses were dismantled, his associates arrested. But outside the courtroom, one question refused to disappear. Years before his arrest, Le Roux's code for E4M had influenced another encryption tool called TrueCrypt, and that connection sparked an entirely new mystery. In 2008, an unknown individual, using the name Satoshi Nakamoto, published the Bitcoin white paper. The creator disappeared almost as suddenly as they had appeared. Over the years, observers proposed dozens of possible identities. One name appeared repeatedly: Paul Le Roux. The theory attracted attention because Le Roux possessed many of the qualities associated with Satoshi. He was an accomplished programmer, he understood encryption, he valued anonymity, and he disappeared from public view. But theories are not evidence. To this day, no credible evidence has proven that Paul Le Roux created Bitcoin. No official investigation has confirmed it. It remains an intriguing possibility. Nothing more.
One of the easiest mistakes we can make is confusing mystery with evidence. Paul Le Roux's life contains enough verified facts to fill thousands of pages. We don't need speculation to understand why this investigation mattered. What investigators uncovered was already extraordinary. A criminal empire hidden behind technology, protected by money, concealed through legitimate businesses, and ultimately undone by evidence. That is the real story.
Paul Le Roux believed that encryption could hide his communications, that shell companies could hide ownership, that fake identities could hide responsibility. For years, they did, but every shipment left paperwork. Every payment created a record. Technology hides information, but it cannot erase evidence. The Paul Le Roux investigation wasn't simply the story of one criminal mastermind. It was proof that no matter how sophisticated an empire becomes, it still depends on systems and transactions. And years later, the evidence remains, because systems and transactions always leave a trace. Evidence has patience. It remembers, long after criminals believe they've disappeared.
This has been an investigative explainer here on Echoes of Evidence. If you enjoy these investigative explainers that follow the evidence behind the world's most complex criminal cases, consider subscribing and joining us for the next investigation. Because every crime leaves an echo, every piece of evidence tells a story.
Evidence remembers. Truth prevails. But it leaves you wondering, in an increasingly connected world, what kind of digital trail are you leaving behind?